Let's say China.
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 China. China. China. China.
There are next door neighbors, and you can actually see Russia from land here in Alaska.
You go over to China.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Trump's tweeting out insults to Angela Merkel. What's he doing?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host.
Yes. Hello, and welcome. I am James Andrews, and you are listening to So This Happened, and the reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated. I took a little bit of time off to handle some internal private business, which I would tell you about, but it's fucking private. And since I've been gone, so much has happened, we can't even possibly recap it, so we're gonna just jump right in as if I've always been here. Just today, Donald Trump reversed the Iran nuclear deal after many people from around the world told him not to do it. He did it. Now, the MAGA Hat Brigade are extremely happy with this move, mainly because of some blind allegiance to Israel, a place which 99% of them, if given a map, couldn't point it out to save their lives. But of course, they will just tell you, but Israel, man, that's God's country. God chose the Israelites. It's God's country. It's in the Bible. It's true. We got to protect Israel. Well, that may be in the Bible, but there are a lot of other weird stuff in the Bible. For instance, when David wanted to marry Saul's daughter, Michal, Saul said, "You can do that, but the price of my daughter is 100 foreskins of my enemy, the Philistines." Now David, being the suck-up that he was, decided that, you know what, I'm gonna go one better than that, and he brought Saul 200 foreskins of the Philistines and married his daughter. So that's one weird thing. And another weird part of the Bible that nobody ever talks about is when God told Ezekiel that in memorial of the siege of Jerusalem, that he must lie down on his left side, had to be the left side, for 390 days. Then, after that, on his right side for just 40 days, so the right side got away. But the worst part of this is that during that entire time, he was only allowed to eat bread which had been baked over a fire of human shit. This is true. It's right there in the Bible. Now, Ezekiel protested a bit and he said, "No, you know, God, I don't know about that." So God said, "Well, you know what? Fair play. Cow shit. You got to bake it over cow shit, not human shit. That's a compromise, right?" And that's what he did. And of course, we can't forget about the time when a chap called Lot, who lived in a town of Sodom, which I'm sure you know because it sounded like, well, quite a fun place really. 2 angels visited this fella Lot, and every single man that lived in Sodom went to Lot's house and said, "Look, you gotta let us rape those 2 angels. They are fantastic." Lot said, no, you can't rape the angels, but how about my daughters? Would you like to have a go on them instead? The men said they wouldn't. They said, "No, we want the angels. We want to fuck the angels, not your daughters." So God struck them all blind. #MeToo. And this story gets even worse because when Lot and his 2 daughters had fled Sodom, they were living in a cave, as you do. And his daughters, they were worried that there weren't any men around, so what they did was they got their dad really drunk and they took turns having sex with him. They both got pregnant and their sons each started great dynasties. And one last final crazy story from the Bible, just so I can really nail my point home. We can't forget the time when Jesus was hungry one day, so he goes to a fig tree to grab a fig off it. Well, this particular tree had no fruit, only leaves. So Jesus basically lost the plot. He got angry and he said to the tree, "May you never bear fruit again." And the tree died. And his followers looked at him surprised and they said, "Wow, that was That was impressive. And then Jesus says, that was nothing, mates. Let me tell you, if I wanted to, I could totally make a mountain jump in the sea. Just like that. I could do it. I could say, mountain, get in the fucking sea, and it would stand up and jump in the sea. So the fig tree, really, child's play. Mountain in the fucking sea, that's tricky. So there we are. That not everything that's in the Bible is entirely plausible, true, or should be followed to the letter of the law. It's more like a recipe. You know, when you read a recipe online for whatever you're going to make, and you say, well, I don't like that, so I'm going to substitute it with that, do this, and then mine's going to be better. That's kind of what the Bible is, isn't it? So, you know, you sort of go, yeah, but I don't like that. That's way too much of that, but not enough of that. So put more of that and more of that, and then, perfect. And I bet right now you're really glad that I'm back, aren't you? It's okay, you can admit it. You have missed this completely nonsensical rambling that I do all the time. You're welcome. Anyway, we'll get back to Donald Trump and the Iran nuclear deal, because remember, that's where this whole thing started, was 5 minutes ago. That's where this started, and then it tangented off into the Bible thing. But we'll get back to Donald Trump and Iran soon, I promise. But first, and this is a story that really shows how powerful the human body really is and how much abuse it can take before it finally says, fuck it, I am done. A man called Don Gorsk just celebrated what is perhaps one of the most disgusting world records I can think of. He just finished his 30,000 Big Mac. That's right, 30,000 Big Macs. That's staggering. I have nothing to say on it, so let's see what Don had to say.
It means a lot because I lived long enough to hit 30,000, you know, but I plan on keep on going. It's just that I'm always amazed when I'm actually, you know, when I think ahead, you know, every 10,000 takes me 14 years.
So there is Don, the man who started eating Big Macs in the 1970s and continues today. He's very optimistic, isn't he, when he says, I'm just going to keep going. In 10 years from now, it'll be another 10,000. Well, I hope so, Don. I do hope so. I'm not massively optimistic about that, mate, to be honest. But the funny thing is, if you look at a photograph of Don, he's quite a thin chap. He's not enormous. You know, you'd think someone that's eating 30,000 Big Macs would just be fat as fuck. He's not. He's quite thin. So he must be doing something right. I don't think he's eating Big Macs, though. That's not the takeaway from this story. And from America's mayor to national punching bag, I am, of course, talking about Rudy Giuliani. We haven't talked much about Rudy on the show. He's been slowly losing the plot. I think that's fair to say. When you look at him after 9/11, he was a very different man to you look at now. He sort of now looks like, you know, when your granddad's had maybe a stroke, or he's sort of in the first stages of dementia, and he's kind of going, yeah, I'm not sure where I am. I'm just going to, clap, yeah, okay, clap, okay, I don't know where I am. That's sort of the look that Judy's giving off, isn't it? Judy? I think what I did there was I took Rudy and Giuliani and I combined them into Judy. Actually, I quite like that. What do you think? I think I like that. I think that's going to be his new nickname. That's his So This Happened nickname, is Judy. It's not going to take off, is it? But we're going to continue using it. So I want to start off just by playing a little bit of Judy just yelling. Because, well, he does it very well.
America! You know who you are! Greatness! Terrorism. Islamic extremist terrorism. Unconditional victory against them. Kill us. Killing us and our allies to their face. What difference does it make? Greatness! The United States of America! USA!
Yeah, Judy! Thanks, man! That was fucking amazing! Right on! Love it! Brilliant! Yes! I'm back. Now, you are probably aware that Judy put his foot in it a little bit last week when he was on that human genital wart Sean Hannity's show, and he said that, look, yeah, the $130,000 payoff to Stormy Daniels from Trump's lawyer, he paid that back, but it's not illegal, so why are we all so upset that we're saying it's illegal? Sean Hannity sort of went, oh, what? No, oh, you didn't, commercial break, please. Because what Judy did there was, essentially, Donald Trump has been denying knowing anything about these payments. No, I never paid her, don't even know who she is. Wouldn't sleep with her, just not my type. I prefer the tits smaller. That's something Donald Trump would almost certainly say. But Judy went on TV and he said, look, why is everybody so upset? Yeah, he paid back the $130,000 payoff. No big deal. It's not illegal. Why is everybody so upset? It was as if Judy didn't realise that, you've just said that the president was completely and utterly lying, Judy. Did you realise that, mate? And then he doubled down on it. He just kept saying, no, why is everybody upset? It's not illegal. It's not illegal. He sort of completely and utterly missed the point, didn't he? The point that he said, yeah, the president lied to everybody in the world, but what he did wasn't illegal. No, what he did wasn't technically illegal. But, and this is the big but, the payoff to Stormy Daniels came right before the debates with Hillary Clinton. Now, interfering with an election or a possible outcome of an election is illegal. And if Donald Trump knowingly said, oh, you know what, if it comes out that I had sex with Stormy, that might ruin everything. I don't know why he thought that, because he talked about grabbing pussies and it ruined nothing. But apparently, sleeping with a porn star, that would have been too much for the MAGA brigade. That's it. So he said no, didn't do it. Judy said, yeah, we did do it and it's not illegal. Don't get upset by it. It's fine. It's no big deal. It happens all the time. And at the moment, it seems that any time Judy opens his mouth, he's hurting Donald Trump. And the thing I love about it is that he doesn't realise he's doing that. He thinks he's actually got Trump's back in this. And I'm sure somewhere in that weird mind of his, he really believes that. Donald Trump appears to be getting pretty fed up with Giuliani. Right after the Hannity debacle, the president came out and said, nah, Judy's a good guy, love him to death. Now he's changed his tone somewhat, and he came out and didn't necessarily throw Judy under the bus, but he kind of pushed him in that general direction, and he said, look, Judy's only been here a very short time, and I'm sure he'll get his facts straight pretty soon. That afternoon, Judy came out and said, yeah, what I said wasn't true. That was just, I misread the situation. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know. You know, the president said a few minutes ago I'd get my facts right, and I have. Well, he actually said it. I have my facts straight now! I was wrong! He was right! Wrong! Right! I am wrong! He right! That's how he said it. And I don't know about you, but I find it really amusing and, well, it's kind of fun to watch, isn't it? All these Trump allies who think they're doing him a big favour, and it actually turns out they're just not. Another man in that camp is Donald Trump's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen. Now, if you would ask Donald Trump, he'd say, look, I mean, Cohen's one of a bazillion lawyers that I have, and I don't even know his name. He's just Mr. Cohen. I thought, Jewish lawyer, that's what I want. Cohen, perfect. Okay, but it's clear that their relationship is a little bit more than that. I mean, this is, after all, the man that paid $130,000 to silence a porn star. Okay, so that, right there, that's not just someone who's one of a bazillion. That's someone who's kind of a mate. I mean, look, I don't know one of my friends who would pay $130,000 to a porn star to get me out of trouble. They would sort of look at me, laugh, and say, is there a video? Because I would fucking pay money for that, mate. And I'm not going to sit here and list all the financial interactions that Michael Cohen has had that can be tied to Donald Trump, because A, it's tedious, and B, it's a very long list. So we'll just focus on a few very recent ones. Just this week, it was announced that, reportedly, Cohen, right after the 2016 election, had a contact with the drug giant Novartis and promised them access to the new administration. Now, according to reports, at least $4.4 million have flowed through a company called Essential Consultants, which is a company that Cohen started in October 2016. Now, part of that $4.4 million that was acquired by Essential Consultants was used to pay the $130,000 hush money to Stormy Daniels, the one which apparently Donald Trump paid back. But don't worry, it's not illegal! It's fine! It's not illegal! Thank you, Judy. Now, other transactions which have been linked to Essential Consultants, and some of these I think you'll be quite surprised by and also quite worried by. The US-based firm Columbus Nova, which has ties to the Russian oligarch Viktor Veskelberg, they made about $500,000 in payments between January and August of 2017. Now, in a statement, Columbus Nova said that it hired Michael Cohen as a consultant, I quote, regarding potential sources of capital and potential investments in real estate and other ventures. That's quite an open-ended statement, isn't it? Potential sources of capital and other ventures, whatever that may be. And the fact that there's a Russian oligarch attached to it makes it even more worrying. Now, Novartis, the medical pharmaceutical giant we mentioned briefly a few moments ago, they have apparently made 4 payments of just under $100,000 each in 2017 and 2018. Now, Novartis said that its agreement with Essential Consultants was, and I quote, focused on US healthcare policy matters, end quote. And I think you can see that in a climate like today, when healthcare is, for want of a better phrase, fucked up, a pharmaceutical giant giving money to the president's lawyer so that they can focus on healthcare policy is staggeringly worrying. And this next one, this is a weird one to me. It's AT&T, right? The phone company AT&T. They made 4 payments to Michael Cohen's company, each of about $50,000. Now, they said that these were, and I quote, to provide insight into understanding the new administration, end quote. Again, another strangely ambiguous statement there. Does it really cost $200,000 to understand the new administration? Surely you could just call up Sarah Huckabee Sanders, be completely lied to and say, okay, well now we know. When you give money, it's suggesting that you want something in return, right? I don't know anybody that gives money and doesn't want anything in return. I know what you're saying, oh, what about charity, James? What about charity? I gave $1 to a homeless man. I didn't do anything. I didn't want anything back from him. I didn't want his clothes. They were filthy. No, you didn't, but you did feel good about it, didn't you? Admit it. You gave the money to the homeless person. You said, wow, I'm a fantastic person. Give and take. It's all about that. There is nothing as free. So I don't think AT&T said, yeah, okay, we'll give them $200,000 just because we love them. No, there was something else there, wasn't there? There had to be. And that is just a small sampling of some of the companies that have donated money to Michael Cohen's company. Now, since these reports came out saying this, these companies, AT&T, Novartis, all of them have released statements saying, well, no, it's not, it's just, we do this, it's what we do. And they really were like that. They were sort of these rambling, bumbling statements, something I would write, really. And it's a difficult thing to do. You know, they had the FBI raid on Michael Cohen's offices last month, which Donald Trump made a big deal about. But the reality of it is it's very difficult to find out what are legitimate payments and which are a little bit more nefarious. In the documents that have been uncovered by the FBI, there are certain figures in there. There's a number of payments that were made to Michael Cohen for consulting. Legitimate, probably. The smallest amount was $980, which was from 2 individuals in Kenya. And this one actually has a pretty great story. This $980 payment was made from these 2 blokes in Kenya. The first one was Nathaniel Cohen and Stav Hayon. And they wired this money to Michael Cohen. Unfortunately, it went to the wrong Michael Cohen. The money was apparently supposed to go to Nathaniel Cohen's brother, Michael Cohen, who is 26 years old and lives in Israel, and he's a flight technician for El Al Airlines. And he has no idea how the mix-up happened. Apparently he's still waiting for the $980 that his brother owed him, so hopefully he will get that. So, joking aside, it's pretty clear that some of these payments that were made to Michael Cohen are dubious, at best. And if Donald Trump knew about some of the payments, which I'm 100% certain he did, particularly from the healthcare companies, AT&T, companies that have a lot to gain if they have access to the administration, well, there's something just a little bit dark and sinister about that, isn't there? A drug company says, here's some money, now let's help write this policy, shall we? And we could literally spend hours talking about Michael Cohen and connections to Donald Trump. We simply don't have time for that. Hopefully, in the next few months, a lot more of these things will start to come to light. I mean, it's fairly clear that this Cohen fella, not the most honest man to ever walk the planet. The fact that Donald Trump has had significant dealings with him, even though the president says he hasn't, well, he's not really said anything that's true for the last 2 years. So when he says, I don't even know him, we go, yeah, well, okay, so you definitely know him. You're drinking and golf buddies, aren't you? You probably circle jerk together, let's be honest. And there is probably a lot of information that Robert Mueller has on Michael Cohen that we don't know yet. And it could be massively significant, or it could be a complete nothing. We just don't know. We speculate that there's something there, and looking at these figures and numbers, it certainly suggests that there is something there, but until we have concrete information, all we can do is dream. And I will say that don't be in such a hurry to get Donald Trump impeached, because remember who is in the wings. Daddy Pence. And that motherfucker is scary. Truly, truly scary. And now back to Donald Trump and the Iran nuclear deal as promised. This week, Donald Trump decided to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal. And before we go any further, I'm going to give you a quick recap on what the Iran nuclear deal was. It started in 2015 under Barack Obama's presidency, and it was a long-term deal signed by a group of world powers: the US, the United Kingdom, France, China, Russia, and Germany. It came after years of tension over Iran's alleged efforts to develop a nuclear weapon. Now, Iran insisted the entire time that their nuclear program was entirely peaceful. The international community didn't buy that, and they said, no, we don't believe you, so we are going to put this in place, and you will have to do this. And in doing so, we will lift the crippling economic sanctions that have been placed upon you. Now, the terms of the agreement were fairly simple. Iran had to reduce its uranium stockpile by 98%, and that was a figure that must not be exceeded until 2031. In addition to that, the agreement stipulated that research and development must only take place in one specific location where inspectors were allowed to come and go as they please. So far, Iran has held up to these terms. Now, also under the agreement, Iran said that it must redesign its reactors so that they could not produce any weapon-grade plutonium, that it would all just be used for fuel. And if reports are to be believed, Iran was holding up all of its side of the bargain. They had reduced their uranium, they were only researching in one place, and they had converted their factories to non-weapons grade plutonium. And in return, the UN, the US, and the EU lifted their economic sanctions, which had been crippling the country. Also under the deal, Iran gained access to more than $100 billion in assets that had been frozen overseas. Now, you'll know that Donald Trump loves to go out and say they delivered all this money to Iran. They gave American money to Iran in suitcases at night. It was so devious. It was so evil. Well, the fact is, it was Iran's money. It was stuff that we had frozen, and we were returning it to them because of the agreement. It wasn't US money. It wasn't taxpayer money. It wasn't money that was meant for the military or education or anything like that. This was just purely Iran's money that was being returned to them. So when a MAGA hatter comes to you and says, well, what about the money we gave it to Iran? We could have used that for other things. Just say to them very, very, very calmly, well, we couldn't because that was Iran's money and we were returning it to them. Now, that won't work. They'll just say, oh, we should have just kept it and spent it. But that's what we're dealing with. And so this week, Donald Trump decided that it was time to withdraw the US from the Iran nuclear deal, thereby reimposing all the sanctions that were put on Iran before the deal was made. Every single country that is a part of the deal, and other countries as well, urged the president not to do this. Britain, Germany, pretty much everywhere said, look, it's working, we've got peace, why do you want to pull out of it? Is it just because Barack Obama put it in place? Is that the only reason? And to be honest, yeah, I think that is probably the only reason. There is literally no plan B. President Trump just said, we're pulling out of the Iran deal, we're going to put all the sanctions back on, fuck them. Mr. President, what is plan B? Plan what? Sorry? What are we going to do after this? I don't know. Ask Mike Pence, he probably knows. But this is one of those decisions that does not just affect the US. This affects every single country that entered into the deal and every single country that wasn't part of it, because, as you know, on the world stage, the US is a very big player. When they do something, others react. And one of the big concerns with this is that the Iranian president, Hassan Rouhani, who is regarded as a moderate by most people, said that he was fine with the nuclear agreement, that he said cooperation was more positive than confrontation. Now, he said this week that Iran will stick with the deal even without the US if the remaining signatories can guarantee that the trade relations will continue. But whether or not that is something that is possible is still to be seen. And Mr. Rouhani also said that, you know what though, it may not happen and we may resume our uranium enrichment program without any limits. So it seems that the president of Iran is not massively happy about this, because he said, you know what, we had peace, cooperation was great, confrontation not so good. And one of the other big winners, surprisingly, of Donald Trump pulling out of this agreement are the Iranian hardliners and clerics, the people who were always against the agreement in the first place because they felt it made Iran seem weak. This week, they have been celebrating the US pulling out of the agreement. They are now saying, finally, Mr. Rouhani will have to be strong and powerful, and we will have to stand up to the US and everybody else. Now, whether or not Donald Trump realized this would be a possible ramification, and it's hard to imagine that with all the advisors and everybody he has around him, somebody didn't say to him, Donald, you know, if you do this, you may make, you know, the extremists, the Islamic extremists, we'll use that word for you, Donald, you may make the Islamic extremists really happy. Is that what you want to do? And of course, the other big winner of the US pulling out of the agreement is the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Donald Trump's friend. I was going to say friend with benefits. Maybe friend with benefits. Netanyahu has been a massive critic of this deal since the beginning. Donald Trump listen to his base, the MAGA hatters who say, God loves Israel, we gotta protect Israel. And Donald Trump said, yeah, we have to protect Israel, let's pull out of the Iranian deal. That'll make Benji happy, and when Benji's happy, we all win. But the funny thing is to me, and this is what I don't understand, Iran is probably the biggest threat to Israel in the world. Under the deal, they were sort of contained and they didn't have the nuclear weapons. Now, without the deal, what is to stop Iran from just bombing Israel? See, it's a weird one for me. I don't understand why Netanyahu's so happy about this. That, oh yeah, it's great, they're going to start a nuclear program now, we can kill everyone. Because that's kind of what it seems like, isn't it? It's a weird one. And now I want to move on to the losers of pulling out of the deal. And the first one, he's kind of a winner/loser, and that's Donald Trump. He's a winner because his MAGA brigade love it. They think it's fantastic. Netanyahu loves it. He thinks it's fantastic. Unfortunately, the majority of Americans were not in favour of pulling out of the Iranian deal. Most people looked at it and said, alright, is it perfect? No, probably not. Do we have peace? Yes. Is that good? Yes, that's great. Let's carry on with what we're doing. So Donald Trump is a winner with his small fan base, but a loser with everybody else, including everybody around the world. And arguably the biggest loser from the US pulling out of this deal is Europe. The French President Emmanuel Macron, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and the UK Foreign Secretary, real-life Barney Rubble, Boris Johnson, have spent the last few weeks lobbying Donald Trump, telling him you need to stay committed to this deal. Donald Trump pulled out. What does that do to these European leaders? It makes them look like chumps. Pure and simple. They failed to negotiate with an ally. So not only does that make them look weak and ineffective, it also makes any further negotiations in the future with Donald Trump almost impossible. They're going to look at it and say, well, you know what? He said he was going to pull out of the Iran deal. We told him why he shouldn't. We explained it in very simple terms. I even made a picture book out of it and showed him, said, Donald, if you do this, this happens. He didn't listen. What makes us think he will ever listen to anything we say? Because Donald knows best. And that really is the message here, isn't it? Donald Trump knows best, at least in his own head. And if he gets an idea up there, they're probably few and far between, to be honest, but when an idea pops up there, he will hold on to it like a dog with a fucking bone until he finishes it. Anyway, enough of that, because it's bloody depressing and there's nothing we can do about it until November, when we can vote. I would like to end today on a brand new segment that I am calling Go Home, Donald, You're Drunk.
Fuck you, I'm drunk. Fuck you, I'm drunk. Pour my beer down the sink. I've got more in the trunk. Fuck you, I'm drunk. Fuck you, I'm drunk. And I'm going.
Now, the idea of this segment is that it was recently pointed out to me that if you play a Donald Trump speech, any Donald Trump speech, and you slow it down by half, he sounds like the last man in a bar, the one you can't get rid of, the one, Donald, you've had enough, mate. And he said, one more story, let me tell you one more story. So, here he is. This is Donald Trump from this week. Go home, Donald, you're drunk.
In theory, the so-called Iran deal was supposed to protect the United States and our allies from the lunacy of an Iranian nuclear bomb, a weapon that will only endanger the survival of the Iranian regime. In fact, the deal allowed Iran to continue enriching uranium and over time reach the brink of a nuclear breakout. The deal lifted crippling economic sanctions on Iran in exchange for very weak limits on the regime's nuclear activity and no limits at all on its other malign behavior, including its sinister activities in Syria, Yemen, and other places all around the world. In other words, at the point when the United States had maximum leverage, this disastrous deal gave this regime, and it's a regime of great terror, many billions of dollars, some of it in actual cash. A great embarrassment to me as a citizen and to all citizens of the United States. A constructive deal could easily have been struck.
It is so good. It is so good. Honestly, if you're bored, go to YouTube, play any Donald Trump speech, doesn't matter what it is, slow it down by half, and it is fucking hilarious. Anyway, that is all we have time for this week. Thank you very much for joining me on this, I was going to say adventure, but it really wasn't an adventure, was it? It was, well, it was what it was. Anyway, listen, it was wonderful being back. I hope everyone's doing great, and we will do it all over again next week. And before we go, if you could do me a quick favour, go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this and give us a 5-star review if you think we're worth 5 stars, which of course we are. It really helps out with the ratings. It makes it so a lot more people can listen to So This Happened, and that is good for, well, it's good for my ego, and it's good for other people that want to listen to it. And a big shout out to everybody that sent me messages on Twitter or wherever you sent me messages asking if I was going to be back or if I was doing okay, how everything was going. Everything was great. It was just a bit crazy. Couldn't get in touch with anyone. So thank you all very, very much. Also, if you would like to become part of the So This Happened family, you can go to our Patreon page, which you can find from our website, which is sothishappenshow.com, and you can donate there a little bit every single month. $1, $2, $10, $100, $130,000 if you would like to, and that helps us keep this show moving along. Anyway, as I said, it was spectacular. Loved it. Love you all, and we'll do this again later. So take care, good night, and be excellent.